Starting. There we go.
Perfect. Hello.
So, which of the two books did you guys read?
I read A House of Scorpions.
Same.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I read The City of Beasts. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How was House of Scorpion?
It was good. It was a lot. Just a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm.
Before this, Kate, Haley, and I were talking about how it sort of had like a couple different plots inside of it. Because there were just these like sections of the story that were so big that they were kind of like their own plot. But
it all came from like Matt's point of view though. So like
yeah,
I like definitely agree with you. Once he like gets out of the once El Porton dies, it like totally switches stories because he like escapes, you know?
Yeah.
And that's when I like started to like not be as into it because like I don't know, I was just like so focused on the main character and I like wanted him to like get the girl or whatever, like go find her. And I was just like, okay, when does this end? When does he find her?
I think there's always that section of the book where like you're like invested and it like switches and you're like, what are they doing? Like, can we go back to where we were? Because this is yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, that's how I was too.
well, and Matt's character development in it, I mean, it was all over the place. Like there was a lot of really good character development, but it started off sort of like he's like this social outcast. He stays in this house by himself, like he doesn't talk to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then he becomes more privileged and he starts to be a jerk, and then like he starts to have like some more power, but then it like dips down again after he escapes from opium, because he goes back down into like into Mexico. And oh no, it's just like he goes through so many different power structures.
Yeah, because he's like kind of like living in a place of like, I mean, he is kind of oppressed like when he is like a higher power, like, even though he's like special or whatever, but like yeah, and so he goes like from like being high to then like being like very low on this like
I don't know if I would say he like ever had like power though, because
yeah,
like the only reason he like had power was because that the guy was like protecting him, so nobody could like do bad things to him, but he still was like not even considered human and like compared to like animals and stuff. But
I was thinking of the times like when he was being a jerk to Maria.
Well, that was a very interesting relationship. Maria's a really interesting character.
Yeah, like with his birthday, when it seemed to go to his head really quickly.
Yeah, that was a jerk move. I agree.
So did it seem like the author was trying to cover a lot of ground in one character in one book, or
maybe?
I don't really know what her purpose.
There's a lot of themes in it.
What about your book, Catherine?
Yes, The City of the Beasts was interesting. I didn't know that it was translated from Spanish. The author, Isabel Allende, she's Chilean American, and she like speaks English and Spanish, but I don't know why she wrote it in Spanish, and then she has a translator who translates her stuff. But yeah, it was really beautifully written. Like the language and imagery was amazing. But there were definitely a lot of like, I guess she was trying to point out the different power struggles and like oppressions in the world in a very interesting way. It almost felt like it was like just a stereotypical story the way she was describing things. I think she was doing that on purpose. That was interesting.
What made you choose to read City of the Beasts?
I don't remember. I think it was just the first on the list, so I just read it.
I think I chose this one was because like I think this one was like House of Scorpions one I could like actually get in time to read it. So It's kind of like, okay, we'll just try it out.
Hmm.
Mhm. I feel like too, like when authors are like kind of like challenging like certain things, you know, like they have like a lot of ground to cover. So then I think like when we're like reading the books and stuff, it's just like we're just kind of like trying to like wrap our like minds around it almost. And I feel like that's kind of like what happened with like at least with this like House of Scorpion, because you're just like I think they're like trying to like make a point, you know, and then you're like, but they have to really like really demonstrate it. And it's like, you know, it takes a lot, I think, for that to like happen. If that makes any sort of sense. But
Yeah, that was one thing that I actually found really interesting in the tunnel reading, where they were talking about science fiction and how science fiction is really its own genre because it challenges certain ideas and it presents like hypotheses about what could possibly happen. And in my post, I said something about Hunger Games, how I really liked the series, and then my mom said that she didn't like it because it scared her, because it was, in her mind, it was something that could actually happen if our society continued the way that it was. And so, like, I was thinking about that when reading about science fiction, and I mean, it kind of makes sense, especially with House of Scorpions.
Yeah, like it's because it's so for Catherine, it's like kind of like the back of like the backstory of this book is like this drug lord like makes a deal with like the US government if he could like have to like stop like smuggling in drugs if he could like rule this like own like country almost, and it's called like opium, and like he's like in charge of it and like runs it, and so yeah, I think like knowing kind of some like the history and stuff like um it's definitely something that I feel like I don't know if it would ever necessarily happen, but it's kind of like almost realistic where like you know there could be like this split because that you know drug cartels like a really big problem or whatever,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like it's interesting.
And the other part of it was like the people that like I don't remember if they like misbehave or whatever, like if they do something he doesn't like, or they just like put this like chip in their head and then they like are basically robots. And so they like made that so that then like you know how like in Esperanza Rising like they were talking about how like some of the camps were like treating their workers really poorly and stuff. And so their argument was like, oh, if they don't have like a brain, then like there's no way to mistreat them. So like that's why they did that so that they could just work, and that's all they want to do is just work, and they don't do anything else. So that was like interesting because that's kind of scary because like what if I don't know, it probably won't happen, but
No,
if
I
it's
mean,
someone's logic.
yeah, and looking at El Patron's character just as an individual, the fact that like he sorry, what was I saying? He sort of like drains people physically and like emotionally to better himself. And so like Catherine, the main thing of it is that he like creates clones basically as organ donors.
Oh.
So that like because this guy is like 150 years old, and so the main character is this person that he cloned, but he just so happened to not remove their brain,
Yeah.
so that he could actually like be a person.
And that's like really unusual. He like was so powerful that he could like break that law, but most clones like don't have that. For
Yeah, you were saying. Oh,
sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say real quick, Nicole. You were saying earlier that your mom was reading Hunger Games kind of scared her, and that reminded me of the little section about the Giver and Lois Lowry in our module, and how she was saying that that was a book that parents kept on wanting to ban or censor, and she said she never knew exactly why it was that it scared them that much.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of reminds me of that show Black Mirror. Have you guys heard of that one? Like on Netflix.
Oh, I
Um,
think I have heard about it.
yeah, and so, like none of the episodes are necessarily like connected, but they kind of all are like possible outcomes that we could have, and like they really like make you think about like how our society like operates. Like one of them like is they like you can like your whole point is like you want to get like this really high like rating, so you want to get like a 10, and people can like see your, so if you're like if you're really like low between like 1 and like a 4 or whatever, like people don't really want to interact with you, but like if you've gotten like more likes and like you're really pretty and like have it all together, like you're like have a higher number, and like people want to interact with you, and then you earn like more like points and higher status, and you can do certain things in society. And it's kind of making this point of like with like social media and stuff, like we are really like we really want to be seen as like popular and well liked, and we do all these certain things and like to get people to like us, and it's like this like really weird like spin on it. Or there's like one where um this person like did like a horrible thing, and they like keep erasing her memory, and they put her through like this really scary situation where like everyone's after her, and she like doesn't know what's happening, and you think like you're like, why is everyone like chasing her? And then you like find out that she like murdered like 2 little kids or something like that with like her boyfriend, and and it's kind of like this way of like kind of like challenging like the death penalty or whatever, but like doing it like in this like, really cruel way kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you know, it's like kind of out there, but also like making a point like how our society is almost.
That's probably why. Like I was just thinking just now of like a possible money question of like why some people they like really like these science fiction post-apocalyptic books that depict a possible future, and then other people it really scares them. Like, like I guess I don't know. When I read Hunger Games, I wasn't scared, but I was in high school, so I wasn't fully developed. I don't know, but yes, it's weird that some people get really scared, and then that just like closes them off, and then some people really take it to heart and really think a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what makes someone do one or the other.
Yeah, that would be a good money question.
Oh yeah.
At
So
12 minutes, or let's go 11 minutes 30 seconds.
so like I guess how you want to like phrase that, like what make or like
Why do some people
yeah, okay, like fear like dystopian books, kind of like that kind of thing, or
yeah, or like why do some people like get really scared and then close themselves off, and other people really think about it and think and try to yeah.
Well, I wonder if it just comes down to because like you have conversation with people, and like if you like say something that like shuts down their argument or like makes them realize something, they'll just like shut down and like be like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like I wonder if like it's like the same sort of thing. Like maybe they like realize that like this is like a possibility and they like just don't want to think about it.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's another form of denial where they're just like if I don't talk about it, if I don't think too much about it, then
It's not gonna be there.
not real.
So it's fight or flight.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is actually a really good explanation for it, because the people that are thinking more about it are thinking about, okay, why is this happening and how can I make it stop?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's hard though too, because you're like, oh, that couldn't really happen, but like, I think in a sense it, like, it could, maybe not to like that extreme as that some of these books have it,
But I mean,
but like, you know, definitely in a sense, like,
but then
certain
like,
types of power could really be put in play that's like crazy, or you know,
but crazy things
and
have happened that were like, how did we like let that happen? Like that's so
yeah,
bizarre.
yeah,
Like, and then it's not like a far stretch. Like I understand why like writers like Nancy Farmer write books about like stuff like this, because like haven't we cloned like a sheep or something?
Animals.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
did a sheep or a cat.
So like science always like goes to the next step. So I feel like next thing we're gonna do next is, and then like that comes into like, so like one of the big themes I think that like I took away was like they like didn't consider the clones humans, but then like because we were reading the book from the clone's perspective, I just was like, of course he's human, like he has thoughts and feelings and like does actions and stuff. And then that kind of led me to like, for my window, I was thinking about like how way back when like blacks used to be compared to like animals and kind of treated similarly to how the book treated the clone. Like now looking back, it's like so obvious, like of course they're humans, like they're not animals, but it's like in the moment people don't think about
Yeah, that's a really good point. That
Yeah, that is really good because, like, yeah, they are treated as like property.
Yeah.
And, like,
yeah, they were
Yeah.
like they were slaves. And
yeah,
like
that
they
like
weren't. Yeah.
yeah, like books about the future actually make us think about the past.
yeah,
For sure.
Well, and I think one of the reasons that authors probably go to the extremes that they do is because it wouldn't have as much of an impact if they didn't.
hmm
So if it was like
Yeah, because it feels
really realistic, it would be boring, and it wouldn't sort of hit us in the face like, wow, this is insane, but this could actually happen.
Yeah, I think they take the values and the problems, the problems of our society currently, what's going on, and then they kind of blow it up and like kind of stretch it in a way.
Mhm.
And so even though a lot of those things are really extreme, the roots of why it's happening is like actually present in our society, and that's what they want us to see.
Mm-hmm. I like a question for you guys is like, you know how, yeah, a lot of times like these books like make like this really point about like status and like people under oppression and that kind of thing. Like, why do you think though, like, I mean, this is kind of has been like a theme for a while. Do you think that like more conversations for like change against what's already happened is like happening, or do you think people are getting like really overwhelmed and they don't necessarily like want to talk about it, so like change isn't happening yet? Like, what do you guys think? Like, do you think it's actually making like a positive difference, or do you think like people are getting like more like scared of it? I guess I don't know if that makes sense, but
I think there's definitely a conversation going on where socioeconomic status is a big deal, and it's something that is affecting a lot of people. Like there's a lot of discussion on the internet and in classrooms about the sort of inequality between people. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that one video where it shows like graphs and the sort of math and representation of how all the wealth is being held by this upper 1%.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of discussion about it and people know, but I think that it's such a big problem that nobody really knows where to start.
mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what also scares some people when they're faced with the reality. It's overwhelming, and they just they don't want to even start because they don't know where.
I guess like, yeah, because I've like seen that video before too. It's like, how do I like try to make like this change, or like I don't even know if I could really make an impact on it, but like,
Yeah. And it's like,
how do we do that? Like, how do we try to like change that? Because you know, a lot of people are like really like, you know, surprised and like think it's you know, it's really unfair, which it is. It is, but like, how do we like begin to like change that?
Yeah.
and then when you look at the question, it's like you're asking yourself, how can I take like trillions of dollars from these very powerful people and distribute it amongst billions of people? It's like that is a huge task.
Yeah.
And so
And
that question, where do you even start?
that makes me think of a little mini documentary I saw on YouTube like a couple weeks ago about Cuba. I think it was Cuba. Yeah. This guy from the US, he went to Cuba and he was really excited to try their street food, and he went to like the stalls in the streets, and they all had just these plain ham sandwiches, and like everywhere he went, every stall just had like more a bunch of people just waiting for the next shipment of ham sandwiches to come from the government, and like he met like, and like taxi drivers, they would make a lot of money because they would drive the tourists around. So there were a bunch of people who like were educated to be like accountants and doctors, and like really they had high educations, but they were doing like tourist stuff because everyone was paid the same, and like there was no incentive for anything, and like everything was the same because the government had tried to try to make everything equal, right? Everyone gets the same, but then it still has its own problems.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What else was in the module?
Oh, what'd you guys think of that poem? The like instruction poem. That's kind of like, yeah, I remember like the what's the author's name? I can't remember. Neil
Oh, yeah, that's
Gaiman?
what to do if you find yourself in a fantasy.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was like totally realistic, or like not really, but like fit a lot of like, you know, like fantasy books, but then like was kind of like funny and like I don't know, that was kind of cool. What did you guys think of it?
What was it trying to do? I just thought it was like kind of cute and entertaining, but I wasn't sure like what point it was trying to prove.
I think it's just like going over all like the ridiculous things that like happen in fantasy books and like the like rules you kind of like have to know without like really knowing or like following like how you like survive in them or whatever. I don't know if I was really like making
Neil Gaiman also is a huge fantasy writer. Like, just looking at it now, and the fact that he wrote Coraline, which is like a super hard-hitting children's movie where like it's really intense. There's a lot of like parents who don't think that it's appropriate for kids to watch, but
My parents didn't let me watch it.
huh?
My parents didn't let me watch it.
Oh, I thought it was a book first.
This lady
Was it a book first?
like, huh?
Was it a book first? I wasn't sure if it was a book first or
Yeah.
like he wrote the movie.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a book first. But yeah, it's like this girl's having to sew buttons into her eyes to be accepted to this family. And I mean, when you think about like what that says about being accepted and sort of being part of the group, it was, I mean, it was a similar struggle to what Matt went through in House of Scorpions, where he was trying to do everything he could so that people would not see him as an animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he completely changed who he was depending on the group of people that he was with.
I feel like a lot of people like go through that, like people that aren't like you've heard of like I know like a lot of Asian countries like sell like whitening like face masks or like soap and stuff, like they're trying to like fit in with whatever, like it's just like a different take on it and like more dramatic and like, but I don't know.
Like you always want what you can't have. Well, I don't know. That's what I don't know if that applies to the House of Scorpions, but like everyone's always striving for something that they don't have.
Or striving to be something that they're not.
That and like would they know other people like want them to be, even though that's not really them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that what you're trying to say, Haley?
Yeah. Like they try to change themselves to like be accepted by like a group of people or like fit in more instead of just like Seems
Yeah, and I mean, like, throughout, like, even elementary school all the way up to high school, I know that I changed so much, and it was never for me. It was for other people. Like, I hated myself in junior high, and it was because I had an awful group of friends. And it was like I completely changed who I was, and then kind of did it in high school. And then in college, I was in a community college, and nobody really like talked to each other outside of class. So I didn't have a friend group to change for. And it was the first time that I really actually got to like figure out who I was. And so that sort of like societal aspect of it was a big deal. Even like trends, like trying to remember some of the trends that like were in junior high, like the
like having an iPhone or
like
an iPad.
a Motorola Razor.
Yes. Hot pink too, man.
Or
I don't
like
like like those stores.
sweatshirt and or like Victoria's Secret pink yoga pants. I remember I was so happy the day that I got those. And it was really just a pair of pants.
Like it really did show like your status or like how you were if you like did those certain things.
Oh yeah.
Weird.
What did you guys think of Angel City?
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
Oh,
I didn't have time. But what was it? Tell me like kind of like what it was about.
it's about a Angel City is a it's I don't know if it's real, but it's supposed to be like an urban place where it talks about like how there are always gunshots in the background and like it's so there's violence and there's poverty, and this black man finds a baby in just abandoned and takes him in. The baby is Mexican descent, but he basically raises him and they just go through life together and stuff. So yeah.
Interesting. Did you guys
Yeah,
read Stranger in the Mirror? I think is what it's called. Stranger in the Mirror. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it was a really interesting
book. It was like really weird because you're like, was that actually happening or did he totally dream it? And she's like making that point, and I was like, what? It was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I think it's totally like. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, like we were saying earlier, that kind of extreme situation really points out the things, the themes in our current society today that's actually happening.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, we like think that older people, like elders, are like less capable, and I think we really like pity them almost, and I think they really hate that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's like fair, and we like stick them somewhere else.
Yeah, I was thinking about how much the main character's appearance suddenly mattered in every single aspect of his life, and oh yeah, it was a lot. Made me think about how much we care about our appearance and how big of an impact it has on every part of our life too.
Yeah, that too.
Catherine, what were some of the like? Because I know this week wasn't it about like power and stuff? So like, what in your book like? We kind of talked about like how we thought power was like prevalent in our book. What did you think like about yours? Like, was there like a power difference or something?
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't quite understand. Well, it was not a typical book. But it was so the main character is a kid from America and he goes on this trip to South America with his eccentric grandma, and they like they're like on the trip with a bunch of like people that are like really stereotypical that she describes, like there's like the old, you know, dude who wrote a paper on the natives and haven't actually met them and have all these preconceived notions about how they're violent and basic and savages. And then there's like the sexy like doctor lady, and like all the guys are really sexist toward her. And then like, and it was, yeah, and everything was very like, she kept on talking about how the main character was so shocked because he came from this privileged background in the US, and now he had to go without running water and had to go without a change of clothes. And uh, and it was, I guess she was pointing out maybe she was pointing out like the power and privilege that some people have. I don't know. And then they get to, and he meets a girl who lives there, and they end up actually getting to see the native tribe, and it's actually like super crazy and amazing and like complex and way different than they ever imagined. And so yeah, it's interesting.
I feel like that's like saying like we often like view other people who like maybe like don't have as much like technology as us or whatever as people that are like, yeah, like too like simple, or like they're just like not complex thinkers, but like in reality like I think they are like, like they like the tribe is really complex, or like you know like they do, like I don't think we give enough credit for like the lives that they live. Like,
yeah, it just was weird because it felt like she was just kind of hitting you over the head with it. Not hitting you over the head with it necessarily, but like all the stereotypical ways of trying to tell you this person is being racist, this person is privileged, this person's not, that kind of thing. But she's like a feminist and like travels around and like is a journalist and like did all this stuff, so she can't have just thought that was enough.
So do you think she like did it like in a sense that was like too like much, where she was like over proving and like kind of saying the same thing like over and over again? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or do you think she like should have hinted at like or showed racism in like more subtle, like less known ways? Is that what you're
Yeah, they were really not subtle. And I think she probably did that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to point out the people who, have a really simplistic view of power and privilege. Like, when you read it, you're like, well, this obviously isn't how the world actually works. It's a lot more complex, and it's not that simple and cut and dry. And so maybe that's what she's trying to. So that's what she's trying to like prove, like help people realize that power and privilege is more complex than just stereotypical stuff. I don't know.
I feel like it loses its effect when it sort of beats you over the head with it, because then you get tired of it and you get annoyed.
Yeah.
Maybe she wanted you to get annoyed, so then you're like, okay, fine, I get it. I don't know. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I feel like our book was a lot like it definitely had like a point about like power and like that kind of thing, but I think it was more, I don't know. Do you guys think it was more subtle than that? I don't feel like it was like beating it over and over again, like beating a dead horse, but
yeah.
I
think it was just setting up the book throughout the entire time, was setting up and supporting this idea of a society where people in power will literally drain the life and the resources from people who are less privileged to better themselves.
Doesn't that go back to the video of the graph of how the wealth in the US is spread? Like, the rich people get richer off the poor people, and basically sucking the life out of them to make more money.
A muddy question really fast for her, like kind of like we're talking about, because we need a couple, but I was gonna like write, do you think like in her own opinion, like is it more effective to like really like blatantly like try to like make a point throughout like a fantasy book, or do you think it's better for readers if it's like more subtle? I don't know.
Okay. I have a question for Nicole and Kate. What do you guys think like
What?
the point of the book was, like, or what the theme was? Like, I know like we talked about a couple different things, but like I don't like honestly feel like she was like writing about power. Like she might have, and I just might have missed the like whole thing. But I feel like it was more about like not civil rights, but like more like I don't know. It was more like a human thing, like just because they're different. I don't know. I just like really focused on like I understand that there was some power aspects, like Elperdon like controlled everything, and yes, they like talked about it, but like I'm having a hard time figuring out like what her point actually was.
Okay, so like kind of I was thinking, which this could totally be wrong, but I was thinking like it's kind of like he kind of like represents like kind of like in the US how a lot of people like in poverty or whatever are seen and they can't really get out of that situation necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's like this systematic thing where they're always going to be lower in their um economic status, and like with this it was like the clones were always considered like not human um and like you know like LPG like ruled everything and like you really didn't have a choice. I don't know. I feel like that might be really far-fetched. I don't know if that's
No,
really at all what she was trying to
I
relate
feel
it to,
I
but
feel like that's what Joy was hinting at a little bit, like in some of the questions. Like she like asked
yeah,
about the
that's kind of
family
like
tree.
made me think of it a little bit. Yeah.
Because then they also show like the opposite end of the spectrum when they like talk about Elperdon's family and like how like all his great grandchildren are like still really rich too, even though like he's the one that did it, not them. You know?
I think Farmer was really just trying to get at the idea that wealth and status is very systematic and it can be controlled throughout generations. So like how or it's sort of like where you're from or what you were born with. Because Matt was born as a clone and to be a clone, and so that wasn't something that he could ever escape.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Maybe that kind of reminds me of like the U.S. and like how everyone thinks it's the land of opportunity and you know social status. Anyone can climb the social ladder there easier than in any other country, but like in reality, power and privilege are still very strong.
Yeah, I think in one of my classes we learned about like, because like people always say like, oh, if you're in poverty, just like get a job and work and you'll like get out of it. But it's like generational. Like if you're born into it, of course there are some people that get out, but like it's super hard because it's like what you're born into and what you learn doing and stuff.
Well, and it's like if you're born into poverty, then you might not be able to get a job or you might not be able to get a good education, and then if you're not able to get a good education you can't get a good job, and if you can't get a good job you can't make good money, so you're just stuck.
Just like if you're born like a certain race, it automatically comes with some privileges or some like setbacks, like no matter what you do, unless you like I don't know, but it's just like the same kind of thing, but not at the same time.
Yeah, and I think the people who continue to perpetuate or like supporting the idea that power and privilege don't actually affect your climb on the social ladder, they're the people that have all the privilege, and so they don't understand what is going on.
The people that were born into wealth are the ones that the American dream, where it's like if you work hard for it, then you'll get it, or like that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the people who do the exceptions, the people who do break out, they're kind of heralded as like
if they
the
did
models and the heroes, and like we look for those stories instead of looking at what's actually going on.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, and even the fact that those stories are seen as like a kid graduated, a kid who's African American graduates college and it goes viral. Like that literally happened. There was this guy who graduated college after his stepdad said that he would never get out of high school. And it was this story that went viral, and it's like someone graduating college should be like a regular occurrence. It shouldn't be that special that it needs to go viral.
Yeah. And the fact that it went viral, it kind of also shows what people want to see. Like, people don't want to face the reality.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that one person graduated or whatever, but if you look at, like, the percentage of, say, African Americans that don't graduate college, that start or don't go at all, like, it's higher, but you don't see, like, you just see the one successful story, and that's what everyone focuses on. Like, oh, if he did this, then you can. But it's like,
yeah, and then you don't have to do anything about it. It's not your problem.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does anyone have any final thoughts?
Mm-hmm. We only have one more week.
We all good?
No final thoughts?
No.
Kate messaged saying that we all froze, but I'm pretty sure that she froze.
Oh wait, there's two Kates now.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Kate, there's two of you.
Do you have any final thoughts, Kate?
Can you guys get off the internet for like a second because it's not working? Then I'll get back on.
Well,
I like we're almost done, but it's like not allowing me to. Okay. Are you going to? Okay. Bye. Hey. You?
Any final thoughts, Kate?
I don't think so. It like froze out last 5 minutes. I really don't know what you guys are talking about.
All right. Is everyone
Okay.
ready before we head out?
I think we're good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.